distance.
Good afternoon, everybody. And they say a few seconds on the clock isn't important. We go on the air a few seconds before our clock says something, and we're sitting here saying, we're not on the air yet. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another showing of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Ashley Perrien, and my co-host this week, Keryn Glasser. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
That's true, actually. I'm sorry. An explanation is in order. Matt Dillahunty is still out. He's got apparently a little bug that's going around, and so he's trying to recoup at home right now. So I'm filling in for him this week, and I was filling in for him last week also when he was out of town. So anyway, I will be here this week. We are live today. It is May 9th or 6th, 10th?
13th,
14th.
14th.
May 14th.
9th or 2nd? Maybe.
Somewhere around mid-May. 14th. And we're being hosted by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at Romeo's, which is on, I believe it's it's on Barton Creek. I don't have the address down.
Barton Springs.
Barton Springs. And those start at 11:30 and basically go until we usually just kind of break up and leave, which usually ends up being around 1, 2 o'clock, something like that. But those are every Sunday. It's open to any atheist-friendly people. If you want to come down and meet some of the cast and crew and some of just general ACA folks, you're more than welcome to come down there and talk to us. We do that every Sunday, save the third Sunday in the month, when we have our lecture series at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. This month's speaker is going to be our very own Mark Lowy, and he will be talking about muon-catalyzed nuclear fusion. So that should be a good one. I'm actually going to be going to that next week. It should be a lot of fun. And that's, again, next week. I don't have the date in front of me, unfortunately.
Nerd.
But, hey, I enjoy that, so that's fine. So that's going to be the third Sunday of every month, which is next week. Also, what else do we do? Every Thursday night, we have Atheist Happy Hour at, what is the name of the place now? At Ninfa's on northbound 183, just north of I-35, just that intersection right there. We do that every Thursday. Starts at 7:30, and again goes until whenever we decide not to. I went to that again this last week, and it's a lot of fun. It's a different crowd. We get a lot of different kinds of people coming to the different events that we have during the week, and so it definitely makes it worth it going to a couple of them to see just how they all are. And the final thing that we do is after this TV show. The cast and crew, we go out to Threadgills on South 1st Street, I believe it is. Actually West Riverside, 301 West Riverside. We do that right after the show. The show ends at 6 o'clock. We get there around 6:30, 6:45, and we're basically right in the back. Like I say, if you want to come down and meet some of us after the show, please do. We'd love to see you there. That, I believe, is it for our regular announcements. So again, welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to go over to Keryn right now and see what she's got to tell us, and we'll go from there.
Hi, guys. Oh, there I am. Hey, hi to all my fans who've missed me. I haven't been on the show in about 2 months. And the last time I was on the show, I was talking about the 613 commandments, and I only got about halfway through them.
Okay.
And I was going to continue that today, but I think instead I'm feeling like I just kind of want to rant and vent about things that are just going on in the world.
Okay.
As I was saying, I haven't been on in about 2 months, and, if I get a whole bunch of fan emails saying how much you guys love me on the air, it might entice me to come on a little bit more often, but... that's up to you. Anyway.
We're not fooling ourselves here.
Nobody loves me. God, where should I start? I have been feeling very emotional lately about just the state of the union, should I say. And it's becoming harder and harder for me to, talk on the air about religion and the lack thereof without talking about politics and getting off on a tangent about politics, because the line between the separation of church and state is becoming more and more blurred and more hazy. And it's really, really upsetting me. And it seems like I'm seeing more intolerance and hatred coming out of religion than I've ever seen in my whole life. And I don't know, and on a more global scale and more public than ever. And I don't know, maybe I'm just coming to the age where I'm old enough to be aware of it. I'm listening to the radio more, I'm listening to the news more, I'm watching the news on TV more, and maybe I'm just more aware of it than I have been, or maybe this is actually a phenomenon that's going on in the world today. It seems to me like it is, but I'm seeing more intolerance and hatred everywhere I look. It's just, it's overwhelming and it's unbelievable. And it's very, very oppressive. And I see more negativity coming out of religion than the positive things that I see coming out of religion. And maybe that's just because the positive things tend to happen on a one-to-one scale, where, one person will make one donation to one other person or something like that, whereas the negative things that go on are happening globally and are much more up front, and you see it more. Maybe that's why I'm seeing it more. Maybe it's not as bad as it seems like it is, but it really seems like it's getting very, very bad.
And I think partly, I was doing some reading on articles before I came on, trying to find some newsworthy things to fill in time. And they had a good article on CBS News site. Title of the article is "Banned in Boston." And it was actually a two-part article. I'm just going to go over a little bit of the first part here just to see what's going on. Basically, and this will tie in, even if it doesn't at this very moment, Catholic Charities of Boston made the announcement on March 10th. It was getting out of the adoption business. We have encountered a dilemma we cannot resolve. The issue is adoption to same-sex couples. Basically, the history here is, and this is in Massachusetts, obviously, in November 2003, the Massachusetts Supreme Court ordered gay marriage. That same year, partly in response to growing pressure for gay marriage and adoption here, both here and in Europe, a Vatican statement made it clear that placing children with same-sex couples violates Catholic churches, or Catholic teachings. Fast forward to October 2005. The Boston Globe broke the news. Boston Catholic Charities has placed a number of small children with same-sex couples. One of the cardinals who has authority over Catholic Charities of Boston responded stating that they will not do that anymore. But that kind of got this agency okay with the higher-ups in the church. They now weren't having a feud. But to operate in Massachusetts, an adoption agency must be licensed by the state. To get a license, an agency must pledge to obey state laws barring discrimination, including an old ban on orientation discrimination. With legalization of gay marriages in the state, discrimination against same-sex couples would be outlawed too. So they are now not doing anything else for abortion in Massachusetts because they wouldn't be allowed to discriminate, basically. Now, how this ties in with what you're talking about is the second part of this article went on to a long analysis with several lawyers talking about where is this whole church-state line drawn and what are some of the possible things that can come out of it.
It isn't drawn. It isn't drawn anymore. The line is gone.
Well, there are some things where this is clearly not going to work and this is clearly okay to happen, things like that. But what they're saying is for years and years, the two have kind of been pretty close together, and it hasn't really been a big problem. They kind of stayed out of each other's hair. Now with gay marriage, at least, that's being one of these catalysts to say, okay, now there are going to be some sparks flying because there's a little bit of tension there. And it's more than just, are these people allowed to get married? It goes into, what about insurance laws? What about lots and lots of laws that are currently in the U.S., which we never really thought about of it before?
You know, I mean, what baffles me, and I'm about to get on a political tangent, is that, you know, the current administration was all like, we think the government is best, which government governs least. Oh, we're Republicans. Oh, we think that the government should not micromanage people's lives. And yet they're sitting here and they're telling people who they can or cannot fall in love with, who they can or cannot sleep with, who they can or cannot marry, who they can or cannot adopt, take care of, be families with, make a family out of. And it's not like we have so many people breaking down the doors of adoption clinics that we have any place to be picky and choosy, you know? And it's like, I mean, I'll bet you anything that the parents of all those gay couples are straight, you know? So maybe we should be going in and saying straight people can't raise children, can't adopt children. There's no sense to it. Yeah. It's just religious people going into government and deciding, I'm going to push my agenda on the rest of the planet, and everything that I think is crazy, I mean, that I believe, you know, whether or not there's any sense to it, I'm just going to go ahead and enforce it on other people's lives. I'm going to say what they can or cannot do, what money they can or cannot have access to, who they can or cannot be friends with. It just,
And by extension, a lot of these people are also, the highly religious ones, are also the ones who are promoting abstinence-only education.
Absolutely. Oh my God. And I just see more and more studies every day. I heard about something on the radio that somebody had interviewed a whole bunch of kids that, God, I didn't bring it with me. Otherwise, I would have given you the exact statistics. But there was a longevity study, I think that's what they call it, done that took a survey of a whole bunch of kids that agreed to take a
abstinence pledge,
a chastity pledge, I don't know what they call it. 2 years later, it was something like 75% of the people that took the pledge had lost their virginity before marriage. But also like 50% of those people denied ever having taken the pledge.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though they were like on record as part of this interview as having taken this pledge. They completely just denied that they'd ever taken. No, I never did that. I signed a statement that said I did.
And other ones I've seen on that same study were, it was basically a survey of kids 2 years apart. As in they took it in, you know, I'm going to make up dates here. They did the survey in 2004 and they did in 2005. And so in 2004, they asked the kids, have you ever had sex? And a certain number said yes. We'll say it's 40% just to make up numbers. When they asked it again the next year, most of the kids who in that intervening year had pledged abstinence changed their answer in the second year to say, no, I've never had sex. So apparently what they're saying is these studies, you have to be extremely careful because you cannot rely on the answers because they're changing them. And so if you said you had sex before and then later on you say you didn't, what's the truth? And so if you start saying these virginity pledges are so good because now look, 90% of the kids who have one said they haven't had sex. So what? Maybe they have and they're just not saying anything. Maybe the whole definition of what is sex.
Don't even get me started.
It's not that funny. Changes. But yeah, there was a study here.
Makes me so mad.
Abstinence promotion has not decreased teen sexual activity, but has led to an increase in unprotected sex.
I think I've also heard some studies lately, just that the number of teenage pregnancies in our country is equivalent to the number of teenage pregnancies in a third world country right now.
I don't know about that. They do have something in here, though, saying U.S. teen pregnancy rates are double those in England and Canada, and 9 times more than those in the Netherlands and Japan.
Yeah.
Now, those aren't exactly highly conservative countries. The Netherlands, least of all. Research shows that when contraception is readily available, the rate of unplanned pregnancy drops. France offers free emergency contraception to teenagers without requiring them to inform their parents. Yet France has an abortion rate half that of the U.S. Now, again, what everybody over here is, getting all in a tizzy about is that if we allow kids to do this, abortion is just going to skyrocket because, hey, now I can have sex and no one has to know it. I can just get an abortion. That's bull.
Oh, you know what else is
Kids
great?
don't do
Actually, now I'm a social worker. I'm actually a licensed social worker working in the state of Texas. And in order to keep my license, I have to get a certain amount of continuing education credits. So I get these flyers in the mail about upcoming conferences that give you continuing education credits. I got one in the mail today. No, not today. It was like last week. That, see, I need to bring more material with me, but it doesn't occur to me I'll need that. But it's a conference about like how to talk to kids about sex. And some of the stuff it goes over is that what we're teaching our kids through all this, abstinence education and just all the things that conservative religious groups say that we need to be teaching about sex, as opposed to teaching them about safe sex, teaching them about responsible sex, all that kind of stuff, is that we're teaching our kids that the only time a human adult would ever have sex is when they've had a slip of their morality. The only time a human being would ever have sex is when they've had a weakness in their willpower. And that there's not ever a time when humans actually consensually agree to have sex. And I actually remember. I
know the underlying premise or promotion, whatever you want to call it, is you should have sex only when you're married, because then it's in a loving relationship, it's a caring commitment, and blah blah blah. And while that's true, I wonder what if what you're talking about is more while that's kind of an underlying message that they want to get across, they never bother saying that, because instead what they're saying in class is sex is bad.
Sex
never
is bad.
Do this.
Don't have sex.
You'll
no
get
to sex.
and blah,
Here's
blah,
how
blah.
you say no. Let's
Exactly.
role play ways you can say no.
Exactly.
Here's some situations where you can experience pressure, and here's how you can say no to them. Here's how you can handle them.
It's sort of like the old church doing all the talk about fire and brimstone, rather than saying God loves you.
Yeah. Now, I actually remember having sex education as a kid, and it was teaching you about all the contraceptives and all the ways you can have safe sex and all the ways that you can prevent pregnancy and disease and stuff. And at some point, I raised my hand in class and I said, okay, I have a question. Let's say that you actually want to get pregnant. I mean, I don't think everybody in this room was an accident. I said this. It was like 7th grade. I said, but you don't want to get a disease. Then what do you do?
Yeah.
And their answer was...
Well, that's just wisely picking partners.
Well, and their answer was, you get tested. You make sure that before you have sex, you test for all sexually transmittable diseases, and then you make sure that you're in a mutually exclusive relationship. But they don't, it's like, and now, so I was getting a good education about how you can be as safe as humanly possible. Yes. And it still came up that, I didn't understand how you could actually have a consensual sexual relationship. That's like used for good purposes, But they just, now I thought to ask that question, and that's good. And I feel like it was probably good for the majority of our class to hear the answer too, But like now they don't even teach you how you have safe sex. They just teach you how you don't have sex.
Yeah.
And should you ever actually decide that you actually want to have sex, you don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and they were also talking in this article about some of the abstinence-only programs and how they talk about condoms or don't talk about condoms. I saw a little 27-minute video or something like that on the internet. It's called, I believe it's something along the lines of abstinence in Albuquerque. Or something like that.
Oh, that study's been out for a long, long time. My best friend goes to UNM where this study was taking place, and she emailed me this study. I think when it first came out, or maybe even not.
Okay. But they were basically talking about, they had interviews with some of the abstinence teachers and promoters there, and they were saying basically in the course they don't bring up condoms. Now, if they happen to come up, they will discuss the failure rates, which sounds innocuous enough. But what they're stating is that many abstinence programs claim condom failure to prevent HIV transmission as often as 31% of the time, meaning condoms fail 30% of the time, when the actual statistic is just 3%. So they're basically taking these.
They added a 0.
Yeah, I mean, they did.
It's just 0. 0 doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. It's an honest error. The decimal place moves a couple points. What does it matter? But yeah, I mean, they're just basically putting out things that are just flat out not true.
They're a lie.
And so, I mean, how can you trust that? If you can come back to these people and say, here is one thing that is completely and utterly false, you have to start questioning a lot of what they say. And yeah, I mean, it's an organization that doesn't work well because, again, it's saying just don't have sex. When kids ask about condoms, you don't need to know about condoms because you're not going to be having sex anyway.
Why would you need to know that? And the thing is, it's a snowball effect. It's a global snowball effect in our society. You don't teach kids about how to have sex, and they get pregnant when they're teenagers. Then you don't provide them health care because they can't afford to buy their own health care. Yeah. You don't provide their kids an education because you're taking all the money out of education and putting it into the war in Iraq. You don't let them give their kids up to adoption and give them away to gay parents who would adopt their kids. Yeah. You know, I really think that what you're doing is you're creating an entirely new generation of unwanted, uneducated human beings who don't know anything and can't lead the world to a better future, which probably, is what the people in power want, because that means they're going to stay in power. Yeah.
All right.
Snarl, hiss, spit, spit.
Quick note. We are a live call-in show, and again, today is May 14th. We're going to be taking live calls. Phone number will be up on your screen momentarily. And if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, please go ahead and give us a call.
I'm just going to go on about hatred and intolerance for a little bit. Okay?
It's such a fun topic.
I just moved into a new house. Okay. And I, made it a priority to make friends with all my neighbors. And I have this 15-year-old neighbor that lives across the street from me who is, I adore her. She is one of the brightest kids that I've met. And she's just, a wealth of curiosity. She's very, very motivated. She's ambitious. She, wants to be a little bit of everything when she grows up. She wants to be a scientist and a writer and a poet and a philosopher and a painter and an artist and a seamstress and an actress, And I think it's wonderful. But she takes it upon herself to learn about things that she's curious about that she's not taught in school. So she will check out books, and she told me that she went through a phase where she was very, very fascinated with things like Greek mythology and Wiccan religion, and her mother found these books, and her mother tore them up and burned them. Literally tore them up and burned them. And through getting to know her, I've been more and more open with her about who I am. And she knows that I'm an atheist, and she knows that I have a TV show, and she knows that my whole family is atheist. She knows all this kind of stuff. At some point, she actually confessed to me that she also considers herself bisexual. Okay. Her mother will never know. Yeah. Is what she told me. And I just think it is so tragic. And one of the fastest ways to turn your kids off from your own religion, when you have to hide who you really are from your parents because who you are is wrong. She is just one of the brightest, smartest kids that I know. And she's just, so alert and aware and just picks up on everything. But she has to hide who she is from her mother. And she's been spending more and more time at my house. Because when she's at my house, I allow her to be who she is. She can talk about it. She can ask me questions. Yeah. God forbid I'm encouraging her. Her mother will not like me if she finds out any of this stuff about me, and she has sworn to me that her mother will not find out any of this stuff about me. Yeah. I'm just that nice, friendly neighbor lady that, likes cats and has a sewing machine and she can borrow sugar from or whatever excuse she finds to come over to my house and hang out. It's not my kid, and I know that I shouldn't be, talking to other women about how to raise their kids, but I want to encourage her. I want her to, for her sake, I want her to feel good about who she is. I want her to have a positive self-esteem. I want her to feel okay with exploring the world and exploring, whatever she's curious about. I think that's how kids become good people. Yeah. I think kids become bad people. I mean, let's take the bully syndrome. The kid who is the bully inevitably always feels bad about himself, but makes himself feel better by putting other people down, so that he can feel bigger about himself. And inevitably, it's always a self-esteem problem that makes the bully the bully. Yeah. He acts it out aggressively on other people. So let's teach our kids to have positive self-esteem and be proud of who they are. Then they won't grow up to become presidents and feel that they have to enforce their personal opinions on everybody else beneath them. Sorry, okay, I'm good. I'm okay.
Okay. As I said, we're a live call-in show. We're live today, May 14th. So go ahead and give us a call, and we're going to go ahead and take our first one, which is Don. You there?
Yes.
Hey, what you got for us?
A question about the title of the show is The Atheist Experience.
Yes.
But, I don't watch it regularly, but I do catch it periodically, probably once every 4 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. And I always hear anti-Christian rhetoric. Okay. I don't hear any other anti-religion rhetoric. And it seems like the show is really more about anti-Christianity than atheism per se.
Yeah. Well, the main reason that we usually focus a lot on Christianity is just because that's what this country mostly is.
Those are the ones that are in power, and those are the ones that are in the majority right now. And those are the ones that are trying to enforce their morals on everybody else right now.
Exactly.
I mean, you're not seeing, Buddhists going out and trying to, actively convert other people to Buddhism, and you're not seeing Buddhists go out and say, listen, I think that, thus and such should be a law because it's part of, my belief system. It's mostly, and as, like you said, part of the atheist experience, a lot of what we experience in our daily lives comes from this sort of interaction.
Right.
That doesn't mean...
but won't you concede that is an extremist minority who are pushing those, and that it is possible
I would agree,
to be Christian and not adhere to the extremist view of it?
I would agree with you in the sense that it's mostly the extremists who are getting out there and promoting it and saying we need to do this and ban gay rights and so on and so on. The problem is with the vast majority of Christians who don't say anything about it. That's the big problem that I have.
And go ahead and vote for this kind of stuff anyway, because they feel like, not only do they feel like they should, but the way our government is running right now, the way they structure things is like, if you vote against this person, you are voting against God. If you vote against this law, you are voting against God. And if you vote against this amendment, you're going to go straight to hell. So you may not agree with his politics, but you want to vote for him anyway because God chose him. You know?
The Christians aren't out there, as much as I would like to see them, disagree, for as often as they call us and say, yeah, we disagree with XYZ policy as much as you do, as much as we hear about that, we don't see all that many out there actually taking a stand to go up to, the leaders in power or the main Christians and, going up against Pat Robertson and saying, I'm sorry, you do not speak for me. Right. I do not think that gays should be thrown out of the country or, whatever the tirade of the week is.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm with you on that. But I think it was Karen was commenting about a Chi symbol that she was wearing around her neck a while ago. Chi. Mm-hmm. And it got me to thinking, and we exchanged a few emails a few months ago about how can you be Jewish and an atheist? Can you?
Or are you asking me?
That's a question.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a question. I didn't realize that was a question. Sorry. Well, to me, Judaism is not my religion. It is my cultural heritage. To me, my bloodline, everybody in my bloodline on both sides of my family was Jewish. It's a heritage that was passed down to me. Much like if you were, I frequently equivalent it to if you are African American. Being African is not considered a religion, but it does have its own history. It has its own clothing style. It has its own food, its own dance style, its own music style. It is a culture. And to me, that's what Judaism is. The chai symbol around my neck, I find appropriate on so many levels I can't even tell you where I start. First of all, it was a gift from my grandmother on my mother's side.
I don't want to delve into what it means to you personally and all that. It seems what it comes across as is that my religion is good, yours is bad.
Okay, but did you not just hear me say that Judaism isn't my religion? I don't view Judaism as a religion. I know that there are several different kinds of Judaism.
So it's an ethnicity, and you don't necessarily embrace everything verbatim that is in the Torah, et cetera, et cetera. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Well, why can't Christians enjoy that same luxury? Why can't moderate Christians embrace their culture and their heritage that's 2,000 years old?
They can.
Compared to Judaism, which is 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000, however you want to define it, yet not believe literally everything that's in the Bible.
Sure they can. And when they do, I know a lot of Christians that are good people, and I've seen it used in its purest form for good. And as a hospice social worker, I've seen the value of how God can just create hope and comfort in people's lives. And I respect that when it's used that way. But what I don't respect is when people force it upon other people, when people shove it down other people's throats, when people create laws that influence everybody around them towards something that has to do with a personal belief system, and when people make it as public as they do. I think religion should be a private thing, and it should be a personal choice. It should be a matter of personal choice, and it shouldn't be if you don't. And I think that's what our country was based on. I think our country was based on we want everybody to have the freedom to believe what they want to believe. But no, the way it's done in this country is this is what I believe, and therefore I'm going to enforce a law that forces everybody else in this country to follow my personal belief system. And if you don't, then I'm going to call you breaking the law, and I'm going to punish you for it. Yeah. It's enforcing it upon other people. I don't see Buddhists enforcing Buddhism upon other people. I see them believing it for their own personal beliefs and using it in their own personal lives. I see Jews in this country. I'm not going to talk about Israel and Palestine because that's a totally different subject that I'm not going to get into right now unless you want me to. But, Jews in this country don't enforce their Jewish beliefs on other people. We don't go out and try and legislate to try and make, Saturday the Sabbath holiday. We don't go out and try and make Sunday a regular working day. In
general, like say, if Christians out there want to have their beliefs and their culture and their ideas, that's perfectly fine. It's just where they start encroaching on other people's lives that we take issue. And we do, again, recognize that it is mostly the vocal minority who is proposing that.
And by wearing a chai around my neck, I'm not in any way enforcing my religion upon or my personal belief systems upon anybody else.
Okay, well that's fair enough.
In fact, most people that see it don't even realize it's a chai. Most people think it's either a camel, a dog, a horse, or a machine gun. Or a pi symbol. In Austin, I get a pi symbol a lot.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing then from you a lot is the big issue of separation of church and state.
Yes, exactly.
Which is fine, but I think if you're going to title your show The Atheist Experience, you have to be equal opportunity atheists. Does that make any sense?
We have to what?
equal opportunity atheists. That is, if you're going to disparage the notion of theism in general.
And we do, like say, if there are stories that come up talking about how the Muslims are doing that, or the Baha'is are doing that, or the Scientologists, they're always a fun
we've done
one.
Scientologists. We've done whole shows on Scientology.
Yeah, I mean, if other groups come up and they are doing something, I mean, we'll get on them pretty hard too.
But is Judaism off limit? Is it taboo?
No, Judaism's not off limits.
No.
And I told you, like, maybe in the future, just so it feels fair, I will go into the whole Judaism versus Palestine issue. Like, I'll dedicate a whole show to that. I'll go ahead and put that on the calendar. Write that down, Ashley. But, I mean, the thing is, as the atheist experience, it is our experience. And in our experience, what we run up against most in our lives as an issue of what adds to our experience or what infringes our personal liberties, or just what we experience usually turns out to be Christianity, because Christianity is the overwhelming majority. We do see stories in the news about crazy things that Islamics do, and crazy things that about the girl that her family married her to a dog to break an omen, but those come up a lot less often.
Yeah, no, and that's fair, and I agree with you guys. I am an atheist, but I guess the only thing that if there was a point of my call, was that just I think the notion of theism in general can be dangerous, particularly when it's misappropriated, and when politicians start talking about God's will and things.
Absolutely
I
agree.
get chills down my spine because something bad's about to happen. Yeah. So I'm with you on it. I just would ask that you be consistent and I understand your point that America is by and large a Christian nation, quote unquote. So I would expect a disproportionate amount of criticism towards that. But
let me give you a scenario. The day that a Scientologist gets elected to president and starts enforcing his goals into the legal system, you can bet that I will be talking about that on the show a whole lot more often than I do now.
Okay.
And if you've had other experiences, hey, I invite you to come, to dinner and join our group and talk about your experiences. And one day, if you get to know us well enough, come on the show and talk about your experiences that are more general than just, slamming Christians, because that's not what our goal is.
Okay. Where do you guys go to Mongolian still?
Nope. On your screen. Currently, after the show, we're meeting at Threadgills at 301 West Riverside.
I'll just look for the deal up on the screen then.
Okay, that's where it is.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks a bunch.
Okay, thanks for calling.
All right.
All right, let's go on to another caller we have. Chris, you there?
Yeah, I sure am, thanks.
Okay, what you got for us?
Well, I was going to comment about how different it seems that the sex education is happening than from when I was a kid.
Okay.
I remember having a really good experience in that they just covered the topics about the mechanics of, and they covered very basic things, and they didn't really go much into contraception, but they didn't slam on you. But right now, what I'm seeing a lot is that there's a big fear thing going on. My niece and nephew both have reported back to me that half of what they heard in even health class was about, how you're going to ruin your life, how sex is bad, la la la, on and on and on. And never once being told, hey, you know what, sex can be beautiful. Sex is a natural process of the. None of that came in.
And I think that's kind of like what I was talking about with this seminar that's coming up, is how to talk to kids about sex, in a positive way, that it's not always this horrible, evil thing that's going to ruin your life that you have to stay away from, and practice all the ways that you can say no. I completely agree with that.
Unfortunately, I mean, I was talking about this with a friend a couple weeks back. I think part of the problem is just that sex in this country is a very touchy subject. We don't mind kids seeing people getting blown in half on TV. But if you see them kiss for a little bit too long, we start getting a little bit squeamish about that. And so it's a very strange thing that we have in this country, where we're just so
funny example of that. I have a friend.
But, hang on, I'm on a point here. But it's just that it's such a difficult thing for us to talk about, historically in our culture or whatever, that when it comes up in schools, we typically don't touch it that much. We try and be careful. Now, if some other group, like the abstinence only group, comes along and said, hey, we have a program, we want to come in and teach sex education, then everyone's like, we don't want to talk about it. Okay, let's let them do it. Because I'm uncomfortable doing it. Let's let them handle it.
Well, that's
the
fair.
problem.
When I was young, though, I guess my problem with the whole difference now isn't that it isn't broached as much. It's just that when I was a kid, they didn't teach you that much, really, but they didn't teach you fear.
Yeah.
Fear is a big thing these days. It's a fad, I think. And I don't know. Again, like I said at the very beginning of the show, I don't know if I'm just becoming more aware of it or if it actually is becoming a bigger phenomenon. But people in our country, and our country is supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave, but people are using fear to motivate everything they do these days. That's how they get people to subscribe to whatever they're doing, and that's how they
It's
they
a
get,
powerful one.
and it shouldn't
works.
be. This is the home of the brave. We're supposed to be brave people, not cowards. And they should just go back to teaching sex education like they did in Monty Python, The Meaning of Life.
Don't actually remember.
You haven't seen that one? All right. Well, you'd have to see it to get what I'm talking about.
I wonder how they. I wonder how the guys in Utah, that new fellow that they're looking for right now.
Yes.
What's his name?
Yeah.
I wonder how he teaches sex education in his life.
Well, and the thing about what Ashley was saying about not minding watching people get blown up on television, but being squeamish about, any kind of kissing too long. Okay, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and, if we have time, I'll just go into all kinds of things about what this conversation was about. But at one point she was talking about how she was teaching class. I guess she was like substitute teaching a sixth grade or middle school class. And they had been going over Romeo and Juliet. Okay. And so, after reading the play, they got to watch the movie. And, of course, they watched the latest movie, which is the Leonardo DiCaprio version. Okay. And there's one scene, after Leonardo DiCaprio and after Romeo and Juliet have gotten married, then they sleep together. And the next morning he wakes up and he goes to the window and there's like a butt shot of Leonardo DiCaprio. And, of course, this woman who's my friend was like, I don't know if I should fast forward through this scene. Should I turn it off? Should I, did the parents know about this? Oh my God, what are the kids going to go home and say to their parents? I'm like, oh my God, the day we stop teaching Romeo and Juliet because they're two 13 and 17-year-old kids who have sex together in the middle of the play is the day that, civilized society falls apart.
Well, we should teach them that they actually did have butts back in the 1400s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And people did have sex naked. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Actually happens.
And, oh my God, they did really get married when they were 13 and 17 years old.
Yeah.
That's the crazy
They'll do that
part.
in some places, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have a really great show, and I tune in almost every week whenever I'm not working, and I appreciate what you're doing. I know you're going to get slammed here by a couple of calls. You always do every single show. I just want to say in advance to anybody that's going to call in or is watching right now who happens to be a Christian, look, before you call into these shows, get a little education, because it gets tiring to watch it. I watch all the time, and there's always somebody that calls in and says the same thing over and over again.
I have two comments about that. First of all, in response to our previous caller, I want to gear that statement towards theists, not just Christians. And second of all, we have a mix of first-time viewers and long-time viewers. And part of this show is just, being educational and encouraging people who have never, seen a real live atheist before to call in and ask us questions that never even crossed their mind before, And to our longtime callers, that can get kind of boring when you see the same question week after week. So we do.
I just think that a lot of these guys that call in, they wouldn't make it 2 blocks in the cash cab. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
I appreciate your show.
Thanks a lot for calling.
But we do have a FAQ page for any people that are going to be first-time viewers, first-time callers. So you can look at that page before you call in.
atheist-community.org. There is a link to the FAQ on there, and it is excellent. Also, in a note to that, to our caller that we just let go, We do have the Nonprofit Show, which is a bi-weekly internet audio show, which is mostly a discussion among atheists.
It's a lot more nitty-gritty.
Exactly. It's not a live call-in show, but like I say, there is a lot of discussion on current news and topics, basically with an atheist perspective, and it's meant for an atheist audience.
So, this is like Atheist 101,
Exactly.
and that's like advanced atheism. So if you want to watch the show, it's going to be a little bit more of the, your basics.
Exactly. Because like I said, we do get a lot of first-time viewers and people who just stumble across the show, so got to cater to them too. So. All right, let's go on to another
Thanks for
caller.
watching the show repeatedly anyway.
Let's see. I think we have another Chris on line too.
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, it's me, Chris.
Okay. What you got for us?
Well, I haven't seen you on the show in a while.
Yeah.
It's those other two dudes have been doing it lately.
Yep. I fill in every now and then, but not too often.
Well, it's good to see you back on there. But what I was going to say was, I even got a couple comments actually about what you guys have been talking about. The one was about the abstinence pledges that teenagers make or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact statistics, but I did hear some statistics about how a lot of those people, they'll have anal sex and oral sex because they don't consider that sexual intercourse.
Exactly.
That's kind of screwed up, really. I mean, not that I'm against any of that stuff.
It goes against the whole, again, what is the definition of sex? Because, again, these classes are teaching a certain thing. And they're technically following the class. They are not having sexual intercourse in the way that it's defined in their biology textbooks.
Yeah, I think sexual intercourse is the definition of sex.
So, but the thing is, though, then Bill Clinton didn't have sex with that woman, did he?
Yeah.
No, I don't think people say he did. They say he
had sexual relations.
Sexual relations.
But yeah, I mean, regardless, when you're coming down to a sex ed course, that is pretty close to being just as dangerous as actual sex. Granted, not too much chance of getting pregnant, but
I think HIV is transmitted through anal sex.
Oh, yeah.
Mainly through anal sex, whether it's heterosexuals or homosexuals. I think that's the main way it's transmitted. And so it's, they're having sex.
Yeah,
it's not anal sex.
It's just as dangerous.
Probable that the difference is that you can't get pregnant from having oral sex. And that's why they really, sexual intercourse is the real sex,
Right.
You can still get diseases in different ways.
And I think it might also go back to that whole icky thing of just in this country we have a hard time dealing with sex. And so these abstinence groups, they don't mind talking about they do have a problem talking about actual sex. They don't do it.
Yeah.
But when it gets on to anything outside of that, well, that's just weird.
And I have several friends who are very, very Christian and have sworn off sex before marriage. They don't believe in sex before marriage. They've done everything but... But they don't believe in sex before marriage.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like, for me, like watching, listening to people that talk about that sort of thing, like abstinence, or it's the same as, to me, as the evolution thing, where they're just sort of denying something that is like, that's part of being a human. It's sort of what we do. That's what we are. I mean, every species on the planet in some way mates or whatever. Yeah. That's what we're here for, really. And it's just, to me, it's kind of ridiculous. If they really believe in this God that created creation and humans and everything, well, then they would have to accept that that's what part of what he created.
Yeah.
So I find it completely ridiculous. But that's just my opinion. I realize there are Christians out there that really believe, it's evil or whatever to have premarital sex, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
and abstinence is a fine part of any kind of well-rounded sex education piece. I mean, yes, you will not get pregnant if you abstain from sex.
Oh, yeah.
Guaranteed.
It's not. It's kind of denying.
I don't know.
It's a fine piece of
the Virgin Mary did.
It's a fine piece of sex education, but it's not the only piece.
Right.
And that's what we need to stress.
I took sex. I'm 40 years old. I mean, I had sex education. We're talking almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's to me, it's just this day and age, I'm kind of dumbfounded really by where America has ended up.
Yeah.
as all this goes. The other thing you guys were talking about Buddhism and stuff, and I don't really know if Buddhists would consider themselves a religion, because
that's a fine line.
There are a lot of Christians that actually practice Buddhism.
Technically, Buddhism is not a religion because they don't believe in they don't believe in God.
Yeah.
But they are classified as religion. I think for like 401.
Pretty much every other purpose.
For pretty much every for like not for like religious identity. Where you get to withhold taxes and stuff like that. They're considered a religion for legal purposes. But I agree. I don't consider Buddhism a religion.
Yeah. But part of the Eastern philosophy, which goes back to what we were just talking about with the sex and all that, is that and actually a lot of Native American cultures did it too, where they would expose their children to as many bad, negative, bad things, to death, to all kinds of really bad things, so that they would be well adjusted as adults to deal with those things. And it really seems that in our country, especially probably in the last 20 years or so, that there is sort of this thing, like we have to protect these children from any negative or what people deem as negative influence, whether it really is or not. Because if it's going to screw them up, and then we end up just having more, even worse screwed up people. I was talking to my dad earlier about, I had called you guys, well, you all weren't on the show that day, about 80% of the country's Christian or whatever, and I still cannot believe that. I mean, that may be a fact, but it's really hard for me to swallow that. But, if we're a Christian nation, we are founded on Christian beliefs, and 80% of the country is Christian, then why do we have so many pedophiles and murderers and rapists? I mean,
they're Christians.
It's such a contradiction. It's just such.
And everything you've been talking about gets me into so many different subjects I wanted to talk about. We might have to let you go so I can go on my rant.
But I could literally go on for hours about it.
Yeah, if you talk about any other country, I mean, Islam. Does Iraq have anywhere near the amount of violence that we actually have, like just in the state of New York? I mean, do they compare? They teach these people. I mean, in all the media that we hear, it's like this horrible nation where all these horrible things happen. But if you study the difference between all the different countries, I really do think that America, which is one of the most religious countries, I mean, like Canada, England, France, these places are all like 50% atheist. But America is one of the ones with like the highest murder rates, the highest sex crimes, the highest kidnappings, the highest violence. Domestic violence, all that kind of stuff,
Well, that's true, and, you guys, I can't remember, I don't know if you were talking about teenage pregnancy, but, you said that, Japan, much less and stuff. In Japan, I had a friend who was really into these Japanese gore flicks. I mean, it's the most graphic, disgusting stuff you ever see, and yet they don't have and that's another thing. I mean, I think it's both right-wing and left-wing who go after that, the video games our kids play or the movies they watch, they're too graphically violent and stuff, and it's going to make them screwed up. And it's just funny how Japan, who has really, I mean, I've seen some really disgusting things on some of his movies, and I'm not into that, but he is whatever, but that they don't have near the problem we have with violence, individual one-on-one violence, people being robbed or murdered in the streets and stuff that we do. And yet, once again, going back to that thing that we try to protect everybody, especially children, so much from these so-called harsh realities or whatever. Well, they are realities, and that's stuff you're going to have to deal with at some point. And I really think that, it's more a recent thing, I think, where, this has become a big thing to protect children and stuff. Yeah. And all it really does is make them kind of not really prepared to deal with life and the realities of it, And
it even
I don't know. I just find it completely hypocritical, really, to say. It's the same thing you guys were talking about, gay couples adopting children, and the conservative party, the people, the family values. Well, it's not family values if you won't allow people to be families. It's just such contradiction and hypocrisy that go on with those people. I mean, the one guy called and said, well, Christians, why do you always... Well, it is. I mean, if I've had people come to my door, knocking on my door, whether they were born-agains or Mormons or whatever. And if I say I'm an atheist, they'll sit there and try to convert me. If I say I'm Jewish, they'll walk right away.
I had a good discussion with them a couple weeks back.
It's just ridiculous.
And you know, it makes you wonder, like you said, you're 40 and you had sex education. It makes you wonder, all these people who are 40 and 50 years old who are like trying to pass these laws that we should teach abstinence only, who probably had sex education themselves when they were a kid. They're confessing essentially that sex education causes the problem, which means they're confessing that their generation is a problematic generation. I mean, that their generation, had really high teenage pregnancy rates, that their generation had really high STD rates, that their generation had really high divorce rates. I mean, none of that's true. And they all had sex education.
Yeah. Well, the thing, I think that goes with everything, like that's just the way it is now, that people's memories are so short. I mean, it's no different than people talking about Ronald Reagan was the greatest president of our time. Well, that's not the way I remember it. And it's the same thing with Bill Clinton was a piece of crap. Well, the truth of the matter is those were like for a lot of people, those were the best 8 years of their lives.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just ridiculous that our society, like not the whole of it, but there's definitely like this general population that seems to forget that stuff and buy whatever's being sold to them. Like exactly what you said about the fear thing, they sell fear and they want to make you afraid of everything so that you'll let them do whatever you want. It's the same thing with illegal wiretappings or the database for the phone companies and stuff.
He's doing my whole show.
You read these interviews and people go, I don't
See, you're saying everything that I was going to say.
And it is getting a little bit off topic, so we're going to go ahead and let you go here. We've got some other callers lined up.
All right, that's cool. Well, thanks for that.
Thanks a lot for calling in.
All right, bye.
Honestly, he just got into a whole tangent, which is like literally a whole bunch of stuff I was going to bring up on the show today. And I did want to say, you were going to say something.
Well, a separate note he was talking about, we have a lot of talk in today's news and stuff, doing all these different things to protect our kids. And it's just strange to note that aside from the intellectual and educational side, there's even a biological side to that in terms of what scientists are currently looking at and discovering to a certain extent is the amount that we protect our kids in terms of antibacterial soaps and mouthwashes and keeping them in this sterile environment in the home where we have, the sanitizing hand washes and everything like that. And it's just such a clean environment that basically they don't have a chance to build up a strong immune system. And so later on in life, they're developing more instances of asthma and things like that because they've been brought up in such a clean environment. They don't have
I completely agree.
That.
But no, I'm actually, I agree with the concept of what you're saying, that if we are overprotective, it can actually be detrimental to our health. But one of the big problems I have with this current administration is, and this is going to be a little bit off topic for a second, is that, we hear so much scapegoating. We hear so much, we're in a terrible state right now. That's true. I agree. But it's not my fault. It's his fault. It's this isn't my decision. I got advice from the Army generals. The Army generals are saying, no, you didn't take our advice. It's your fault. Well, he's saying, actually, it's not really you guys. It was it was this other guy over here, and everybody's blaming everybody else. There's no accountability. And what frustrates me about things like this sex education, this prayer in schools, we have to teach our kids religion in schools. We have to not teach them evolution. We have to teach them morals in schools. We have to teach them sanitation and cleanliness in schools. There's no more accountability in the home. Yeah. We are taking school time away from teaching our kids math and science and English and literature. They get to college and they don't know how to construct a proper sentence. Yeah. I was in college and my 101 class teach you about grammar and punctuation. You should know that by the time you get to college. You know why? Because they teach it to you in school. All that other stuff, your parents are responsible for teaching you that. Yeah. I can't teach my kids math and chemistry. I suck at math and chemistry. But I can teach my own children about sanitation, about morality, about proper behavior in mixed social circles, about proper manners. I can teach my own kids that. You don't have to teach them that in public school.
Too many parents are not involved in their kids' lives as much as
and everything.
They used to be historically.
Everything we're trying to push in the school system is things that the parents should be teaching their kids at home. If you want your kids not to become gay, not to date gay people, and to think that gay people are evil, that's your responsibility to teach them outside of the school. You don't bring that into the classroom and teach it to all the kids. You don't teach it to other parents' kids.
Yeah.
You don't, if you want your kids to have etiquette lessons, then you take them to etiquette lessons after school's over. You don't teach etiquette classes in school. You don't do that.
Yeah. Though, on a side note to that, I would say that diction would be a really good thing to have in schools nowadays.
Ooh, I agree.
Teaching
And
people to
handwriting.
actually speak correctly and clearly, excellent thing when we're taking calls all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
But let's go on and take yet more calls, and hopefully they will have some.
Wait, no, I wanted to go on to another subject for a minute. You stole my subject.
Quickly.
This past caller, one of the things he brought up was that what we're doing is we're trying to protect people from human experience, and that a large thing that religion does is it tries to deny human experience. It tries to deny the experience that people die, that people have sex, that sex can be a beautiful thing. It tries to deny all these experiences. One thing I notice in my work as a hospice social worker is that the families that are more religious are less able to cope with death. And I don't mean like they don't have the support structure to do it. I mean like I have patients who are 104 years old. Okay? The family is sitting here over their bed, and they have Alzheimer's or they have Parkinson's or they have whatever. And the family's sitting here over their bed, grieving and mourning. Oh my God, they were so healthy. They were so nice. They ate right. They exercised. And now look where they are. They're dying. They have Alzheimer's. And I'm like, they're 104 years old. They're going to die someday. And they're sitting here going, what did they do to deserve this? Why is God punishing them with this ailment? Why? What did they do? Did I do something wrong? Did they do something wrong? And when the patient finally does die, I see things like, oh my God, this patient died and it's my fault because I gave them too many pain medications, or I gave them not enough pain medications, or I gave them, or they were saying that they were sick and I didn't bring them to the doctor. And I'm just like, the patient was gonna die. On a separate, we have a mutual friend whose wife died, and he blamed himself for it. Along those lines, it was like, I think she had too many pain medications or too little pain medications and she died, and he'd been having this dilemma. Should I give her more? Should I give her less? And if he'd done the other thing than he decided to do, she would have lived. She was gonna die. I mean, she had a life-threatening condition and he knew she was gonna die, and she'd already lived like 10 years longer than the doctor said she was. But it always, this is what religion teaches us. Religion teaches us that we should avoid natural human experiences, and when natural human experiences do happen, there's some religious cause behind it. And it's not true. Humans die. It happens.
Yeah. It's just because, again, religion teaches that, Christianity teaches that sin was brought to earth by man. So if anything bad happens, it's either directly or indirectly our fault. So
they don't understand that, if you live long enough, you're going to get Alzheimer's. We don't have Alzheimer's more commonly in today's day and age than we used to because we're more sinful. We have it because we're living long enough to have it.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't used to have it because we used to die when we were 65. Now we're dying when we're 104 years old. Yeah, you're going to get Alzheimer's. Yeah. You're 104 years old. If you live long enough, you're going to get it.
Okay. All right, well, on that happy note, let's go on and talk to Grant. You there? Grant.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, hello.
I'm sorry, I was
sleeping?
turning down the volume.
Oh, okay.
That's all right.
Hey, I wanted to, on the topic of this education and religion and things like that, I wanted to kind of throw this out there into the forum. Kinky Friedman is saying that he would like to bring back school prayer. And a lot of people who are, I guess, maybe atheist or agnostic or non-necessarily Christian kind of have this opinion of this rebel or this outsider or this, he's going to get in there and make some changes. And I think people should maybe, before they jump on the bandwagon in the super liberal bubble that we live in, maybe start to think about some of the things he's saying.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I heard that he thought that would be a good idea, and
actually, I'm going
there.
to say I'm guilty of that because, like, I barely know much about Kinky Friedman, but, like, as soon as I heard he was going to be on the ballot, I was like, oh, I've heard of Kinky Friedman. He's supposed to be really, really funny, and that's pretty much all I know about him, so sure, let's vote for him. But then I just started hearing some rumors that, like, some of his policies and some of his ideals, like, weren't really good, and so ever since then I've been like sort of neutral because I haven't actually sat down and read his website and read what he actually has to say.
Right.
And I don't want to say I'm in favor of him or against him until I sit down and read it.
Oh yeah, and I'm not saying that you guys really haven't picked one way or the other, but I just thought that
no, that's what I'm saying. Is that's a good thing to bring up. Is don't subscribe to someone just because you know who he is or you've heard his name or he's really really funny. Actually sit down. I mean, anybody that's running for any position, especially where we've gotten to in the State of the Union today. I mean, anybody that's running for any position, don't listen to the propaganda. Sit down and read what they're actually all about.
Sure.
I mean,
it is our job to educate ourselves.
Yeah.
The problem we were
Select
saying,
people that we would like.
the problem we were saying when Bush was originally running was that they were both trying to sound as neutral as possible, and they were both pretty much saying the exact same thing and answering everything pretty much like as non-answerably as they possibly could. If you sit down and actually read what he's all about and read his life story, read his website, read his policies, maybe we would have not gotten into the mess we're in now.
Right. Right. And then something else that just came up earlier in the show was about, in reference to Buddhism, I am struggling with trying to classify myself as both atheist and Buddhist. So there is some sort of connection there. Have I figured it out yet? No. Am I trying to figure it out? Yes. Yeah. But there is some sort of connection to atheism and Buddhism, and I just think it's fascinating when you really start to think about those two fundamental principles and take a look at them. They're pretty interesting how they compare.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much any religion or philosophy has some kind of benefit it can give somebody by taking those teachings. It's that every religion and every philosophy can go a little bit too far off the deep end.
And where it's too far for me is the concept of reincarnation, the physical act, the physical act of reincarnation. I'm struggling with it.
It's nice to think about, but it doesn't mean I believe it.
Yeah. But I mean, you
Buddhism
die, your
is
carbon,
not.
Your carbon turns to this. I mean, there's some sort of reincarnation, but I don't think that's really what they're talking about.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be around to enjoy my life as a tree.
Yeah, exactly. Your kids might, but anyway.
I guess there's partially the concept that, like, your cells, your atoms, your nuclei have memory, you know, and so even though they break down and they become part of the soil, the dirt, the plants, the animals that eat them, whatever, that part of the memory cycle of your atoms is going to be reincarnated and is going to come back to, you could break it down scientifically if you really tried. But no, I agree. I think that Buddhism is one of those ones that does not classify itself as a religion because it doesn't believe in a supreme being, which kind of means that, whether or not you're an atheist or a theist, you could take Buddhism however you prefer.
Right. Well, I appreciate what y'all do on the television. I love y'all's show. I want to give out a warning, though. Try not to generalize. Keep it specific. There's a lot of times people call and they get on their preaching and they're high horsing, and it starts to sound a little bit like the people that y'all refer to as Christians. I call it recreational Christianity. It's having fun at the expense of Christians. There are good people out there, and they might call themselves this or that, but keep up the good job, guys. Thanks
a lot for calling.
Bye.
Yes, we try and avoid the generalizations, but it's really difficult and sometimes kind of a waste to have to clarify everything that's said with, we understand that this is against the extremists or this is the blahs that are saying this, but yes, good to point out every now and then.
Wait, I'm going to make a generalist statement and encourage anybody to challenge me. I hate all hateful people. Those are the only people I hate. The only people I'm intolerant towards are people who are intolerant people.
No.
You know?
All right.
I accept people for their differences, but I don't accept people who don't accept other people.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that mean I hate and intolerant myself?
Yes, you have internal struggle issues that you must resolve.
I do.
All
Because
right.
I want to love them anyway.
We are going to go on to other callers. We've got 20 minutes left. And again, it is a live call-in show on May 14th. So if you want to give us a call and tell us what you think, please go ahead and do that. Also, on a side note, again, we are getting together for dinner after the show. So any atheist-friendly people, if you want to come down and meet us, the cast and crew at Threadgills at 301 West Riverside, we will be going there after the show. We'll typically get there around 6:30, 6:45, and we'll be in the back. You're welcome to come down and meet us there. Let's go on and take Don. You there?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
Hey, I know you're gonna recognize my voice, and I'm just saying I'm gonna be real with y'all. I'm not gonna be discriminatory and yelling at you like normal. I've got a few questions, but let me turn down my TV. One second.
Okay.
All right. Hello?
Yep.
Hey.
Hold on, let me turn this up. Give me the remote. Just give me.
Yes, a reminder to other people watching the show, when you get on the air, turn down your TV. We get weird feedback, and it sounds like you're underwater.
Yeah.
So anyway, what you got for
I was
us?
asking, so do y'all have this show? Y'all have this show, right? It's every Sunday?
Yeah.
And so y'all meet at Threadgills every Sunday?
Yes.
So y'all are open for new people? I have a friend that's actually an atheist, and
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying to get into the whole scene there.
Yeah, atheist friendly, that's fine. We don't want
People who
religious
will
people coming
proselytize.
down proselytizing, because again, it just heartburn.
Right. You know, like we don't mind getting hecklers and proselytizers on the show. That's what the
That's
show's
what
here
this is
for. But, you know, dinner afterwards is like, hey, if you're an atheist-friendly person and you want to meet other atheist-friendly people, then yeah, come join us for dinner after the show.
Yeah.
So y'all's call screener has improved, I must say. It's a little tougher to get on the air now. But
Good.
yeah. So
We've still got a
the guy
boot button.
that just called about the generalization topic and all that.
Okay.
I think that guy just was talking. He just wanted to hear himself talk on TV, and he's a big bag of douche, if you don't mind me saying so.
Well, there
Well,
goes your
some
chance.
people might say that about you. But
all right. Let's go on to another caller. We have got Joe. You there?
Howdy.
Hey.
Karen.
hey,
And Ashley. Great
Yes.
to see you all on TV again.
thanks.
I just wanted to comment about Buddhism.
Okay.
I do think that there is a good comparison made between Buddhism and atheism, and that I think the reason why mostly is because Buddhism is somewhat human-centered or humanistic, if you will, as opposed to this wildly polytheistic Hinduism that basically came from, I think. And Buddha himself, if you read... Well, I've done a little reading about his life, and not a lot, but he just seemed like a person who was tired and fed up with the political and social and cultural soap opera of the hierarchical polytheistic religion that just focused so much wealth into this religion when there was so much poverty all around them instead. It should have been helping out poor people. And it just seemed that this kind of enlightened him as to the reality and the priorities that we kind of need to look at and to help out our fellow human instead of focusing so much on helping a God.
Yeah.
And I think that this is something that atheism talks about a lot.
Yep.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that, and that other caller was kind of long, and he did enjoy himself. I'm hoping that that's one reason why people should call, to enjoy themselves, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay,
Have a good
thanks,
day.
Sean.
You know, something he said reminded me to say this. I don't remember what exactly, but going back to my neighbor, I think, about Buddhism being an, human-centered religion.
Yes.
Here's one thing that I think about different alternative religions. Let's take Wiccanism. Let's take my little neighbor, who has gotten very, very intrigued with Wiccanism. In my opinion, as an atheist, Wiccan is a earth-centered religion.
Okay.
What they worship is Mother Earth. They don't worship a supernatural being. As an earth-friendly person myself, I say bravo. I commend any religion that is earth-friendly and worships the earth and respects the earth. I think that's great. I think we should have more of them. Her mother is, very upset and angry about it and doesn't want to know about it and doesn't want to see it and, doesn't want her participating in it. And I think it comes from that place of fear that she is the believing type. Yeah. And as a Christian, she does believe that Wiccans practice secret chants and spells and they're witches and they cast spells and perform seances and they do satanic stuff like that. And I know that Wiccanism does stuff like that. But as an atheist, what I see is people lighting candles and singing songs and dancing around. And I think if you teach your kids the proper fire safety rules, that's completely harmless. And, if she wants to sit in her room and light candles and say mystical sounding words, there's no harm in that. The problem is that her mother believes that there is. Her mother believes that she's probably actually going to be trying to practice real spells and probably actually trying to toy with the force of the universe and that she's going to be doing ungodly things that are going to...
And while I would generally agree that having a philosophy that has a favorable view to the world, for lack of a better term, I guess, is a good thing, as with any philosophy, it can be taken too far.
Yeah,
and when you start ignoring science and reality in favor of your philosophy, that's when it starts getting a little bit on that hairy line. And so, yes, while, again, Wiccanism definitely has philosophies in it, that kudos to them for that.
But her mother is encouraging her to follow science and reality. She's encouraging her not to cast spells.
Yes. And again, if this is something where someone enjoys this kind of make-believe world, then that's fine. It's sort of like a role-playing game almost. It's fun. It's just you got to make sure that you temper all of your philosophies with reality and know that, it's fun to go see a movie, play board games, play role-playing games, light candles in the woods. You draw the line when you start thinking, this is real.
I think the problem is, and she actually told me a little bit about, that led me to believe that is her mother's problem. Is she believes that if her daughter gets anywhere near Wiccan, then what do they call it? Wiccanism, Wicca. Then she's going to turn into Evil Willow.
Yeah.
From Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And her eyes are going to turn black, and the wind's going to blow her hair.
That's what they're concerned with Harry Potter. Not that it's not teaching them Christianity and God, it's that it is encouraging them and getting them open to satanic rituals and forces of the dark side.
The problem is, I don't believe there are satanic rituals.
That's my problem with it.
That's the problem with believing in things, is it's a slippery slope. You believe one unrealistic thing, you're going to believe all sorts of crazy, weird crap, And if you're an atheist, it's like, oh, my kid's going through a phase where she likes to dance around a candle. Yeah. Sure. Have fun. Keep a fire extinguisher near you, but have fun.
If you're going to believe one unscientific and just completely irrational thing in your life, where do you draw the line? 99% of Christians, again, not to generalize, 90% of Christians do a perfectly fine job at it. But there's the other 10 of Christians and other religions and everybody else who just gets a little bit whacked out.
And I think it's healthier, too, because, if you do light a candle and dance around it, if you do encourage your kids, do that. Until you find out that you're not actually making it rain. And then, that's how you learn about reality and the difference between reality and religion. But if you keep that from them, then they're going to grow up to believe weird kinds of shit.
Exactly.
Can't say that.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a couple callers. Let's go on and take...
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Greg, you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here. How are you doing?
Okay, what you got for us?
Yes, sir. I am a retired professor from Truett Seminary in Waco, Texas, and I taught there for 22 years. And also, I am a retired professor from Dallas Theological Seminary. Taught there as well. And I've done mission trips before. And before I started teaching, I did a couple of mission trips. The first one was in Africa. and I went over there to study their religion. And I've kept up with them over the past 25 years. And what I found out to be, and the reason that I say all this, I'm going somewhere. Just give me about 2 seconds. Right now, the largest population of Christians is over there. Between Africa, Europe, those countries, those parts of the world, they practice Christianity.
Okay. You say it's the largest. Do you mean in terms of sheer numbers or percentage of population, or
well,
both?
in terms of really both of them. When you look at the sheer numbers, you find people in the ranges of 400 million people, 400 to 450 million people, that from surveys and from actual people who go, that you find that they are practicing actual Christianity in its fullness. And what I'm saying is that and by the way, I'm sitting in a hotel in Four Seasons. I am
welcome to
I'm here in town. Thank you. And what I found out is that I'm a Christian. You guys are atheists, but I'm not different from you all. And the fact I don't walk around trying to kind of profess myself as a person who tries to give on you or send on to you the way I think.
Yeah.
I don't believe that I have to do that.
Okay.
You're a person and you think your own way. You have a choice, to make just like all of us do.
Yeah.
I choose to practice Christianity. You choose to practice atheism.
Okay.
But the question I have in the thought of the atheist experience. My bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the volume. I found out that there is what we call. I feel like sometimes there is an unclear foundation for what the atheist experience is, and what I mean by that is anything that I've studied. What I've come up with is that there's a very free will that is given to everybody. Everybody has freedom to make choices, and I think any time that you try to put limits on people, they branch out and want to do things, and when it doesn't register in their mind, they feel like somebody's trying to put something on them, so they say, well, I don't want to do that. I've had students in the past who were atheists, and when they left me, they were still atheists, but they had a clear, conscience when it came to Christianity.
Yeah.
I mean, because a lot of times people who practice Christianity these days don't have a true understanding or a true concept of what Christianity is. I don't believe that Christianity and the thought of what we do now is actually what we do now. It's not.
Okay.
It's not a situation where...
And I think I understand what you're saying in terms of what is Christianity versus what are we railing off against.
Right.
To summarize, basically. And while I do understand that, I guess the point that we're coming from is regardless of what true Christianity is, according to you or whoever else that we ask, what are they actually doing? So, you may say true Christianity is accepting of everybody, don't push your beliefs on them, and that's fine. But unfortunately, the people the Christians who are actually doing things don't agree with you. And they're the ones who are saying, yes, we should be able to impose our worldview on other people. And that's what we have issue with. And they're doing it under the guise of, because I'm a Christian and because the Bible says blah, then we must do that. And that's what we have issue with.
I have several responses to that. And first of all, is that saying, what you said, saying that, people believe they're Christian, their responsibility as Christians is to push Christianity upon other people. I have a friend who's Catholic, and she said, she went on a mission trip and she was all excited. Oh, we're going to be going to an impoverished population, and we're going to be handing out food and clothes and books and toys and helping the hungry and doing all this stuff that it says we should do in the Bible to be good people. But no, actually they didn't do any of that stuff. They just went door to door knocking on people's doors and teaching them about Christianity and trying to push it on them. And she was very upset about that because, that's not what she believes Christianity is. So, my other response was, sorry, you threw me off.
So your response to that part, at least.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think for me, the basis of Catholicism, first of all, in my studies, I've never, and I don't want to offend anybody when I say this, but in the terms of the Mary that they hold high, Mary's not a saint.
Okay.
But that's still kind of beside the point, though.
Well, I think
if you understand what I'm saying, and I don't mean that in the sense that she wasn't a good person.
Well, no. I mean, what I'm saying though is that's beside the point. I mean, her specific story was about a Catholic, but regardless of that, it's still the fact that yes, Christians do help people. Yes, many Christians have perfectly good ideas about how the world should be run. And I understand your point that, here's what a true Christian says, but what Christians are actually doing is different.
And I'm vaguely getting the impression that what you're trying to convey to us is that atheists, okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you trying to say that you think that atheists are atheists because they don't agree with what Christians are doing? Like something about Christianity put us off, and that's why we became atheists?
No. What I'm saying is that everything is done by choice. Nobody ever makes a decision. I don't think any person who's even mature enough to make a decision of something of this magnitude would make a decision based off of somebody who's tried to put something on them. I believe that being an atheist or being a Buddhist or worshiping Krishna or anything of that nature is something that is a choice that people make.
Okay, I disagree though, and here's why. First of all, I'm going to say that I don't agree that I chose to be an atheist because I did go through many, many years of my life as a younger child where I was an atheist, but I wanted to believe in God. And I wanted to believe in God for reasons like jealousy, like, oh, all my friends believe in God. Oh, because all my friends believe in God, they celebrate Christmas and they get to have a Christmas tree and get all these presents, or because they believe in God, they have all the answers to everything or whatever. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't convince myself there was a God because I just didn't believe it. It's like if you try hard enough, is it a choice to believe that you can fly? I mean, if you try hard enough, can you believe that you fly? Do you think it's a choice whether or not you believe that? And I'd ask you, I mean, do you believe that you chose to believe in God? Or could you be an atheist if you felt like it?
And I also believe, I'll let you respond in just a second here, that to a certain degree, I think you're right, but I think a lot of us don't actually choose those decisions because this country is mostly Christian, which it was 20 years ago and 20 years before that. Middle Eastern countries are mostly Muslim, which they were 20 years ago and 20 years before that. Most people by default are going to accept the religion that they were brought up in. That's not really so much. If it were truly just a choice, I would expect a much more random distribution of religions. And that's not the case.
And I do admit that, I chose to be out about my atheism, and I chose to be open about talking about it and educating other people.
And
I don't. Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying, and I applaud you for. Yeah. I applaud both.
Let's get a quick response from you on that. We have 1 minute left.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm taking up time. I guess the response I have to that is that I think one of the main things is that people, especially when you grow up in a Christian environment, you have a hard time because you feel like already, like even for me, I was brought up in church all of my life. And so I felt like that was all I had. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I didn't know anything until I got out and saw the world. I heard you speaking earlier about being sheltered. Uh-oh. Hello?
Yeah, we're still here.
Oh, I'm
sorry, but our clock is off, so
I think we're
we
going to
should've
have
remembered
to
that.
end it, though. But you can
Yeah,
reply to TV at Atheist.
Yeah, we do have an email address, tv@atheist-community.org. If you want to go ahead and drop an email note there, then we can continue it there.